Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I must say I'm very grateful to each and every one of you who made time to watch the previous video. This video is as a result of the feedback I got from the previous video. A lot of people wanted to know not just the basics of color grading in Capture One, most people wanted to know some advanced techniques as well. In this video, I'm going to show you some advanced techniques in Capture One. These techniques will take your images to the next level. Let's get straight into the video. This is the image we are working on today. This particular picture has been one of my most liked pictures on Instagram, and the color grading I did on this was a bit simple but complicated, and I'm going to take us through it. As I mentioned in our previous video, in some pictures I fixed the natural vignetting that comes from the lens, and in this particular picture I'm going to fix the vignetting just a little bit, just so her face clears up a little bit, because it's the shot was taken like outdoor. I want to be able to control everything. I want to control the entire lighting, so I'm just fixing the lights fall off just to bring up the level in her face. From there we will move straight to working on the general exposure. That's the first thing I do. I always work on the exposure first before I tackle color. So as we did previously, I reduce the exposure a little bit, and what I'm focusing on in bringing down the value is her face, her skin. So the whole idea is to get her skin to look natural. The colors will bring the colors later. So for now, I think I'm okay with the exposure. Saturation, like I said, I prefer tackling it based on each color, not a general thing. Because we want some details in the clouds, we'll bring down the highlights. Yes, like all the way. Also, in bringing down the highlights, it reduces the glitters in the dress, so you need to also take notice of that. Don't just bring down your highlight slider without looking at every other thing it's affecting. But I think in this image it's fine, so bring it all the way down. And I still feel like the level in her face is still a bit much, but if I'm reducing the exposure, it's going to make the shadow part too dark, so I'm going to combine the exposure and the shadow to balance the shot. So let's do that. So reduce the exposure and we'll bring up the shadows just a little. If you go too much, it becomes, it doesn't look nice. You need to be careful when you are pushing the shadow slider. Okay. So once again, press Y to see before and after. So we've come a long way so far, and now we can jump into the fun part. So I'm going to create two grades for this particular picture. Because of that, I'm going to break this video down into part 1 and part 2 because I don't want the video to be too long. So we are going to use some advanced techniques to create a grade for this one. And in the part 2, we are going to do something extreme, like totally change the image. So for the first part, we are just going to use the advanced tools to color grade. So the previous time I mentioned that I color grade with a color balance. I still color grade with a color balance, whether it's a simple grade or a complicated grade. But there's a tool that I prefer using for some complicated grades, and that's the luma range tool. As you can see, when I create a new layer, it becomes activated. So what the luma range does is that it breaks the image down into shadows and highlights, or sometimes mid-tone based on how you set it up. So I normally use it to select certain range I want to push colors to. So for this particular image, I want to push some colors into the shadows, but I don't want to use the shadow slider in the color balance, because that has already been programmed in the software, and it already selects certain parts. The software thing should be shadow, but then in color grading you want absolute control over everything. So I prefer selecting the areas I want the shadows to be affected, not what the software thinks the shadows should be. I hope it's clear. So that is exactly what we are going to do with the luma range. So this is how it looks like. If you open it, you don't see anything happening till you need to turn the display mask on to see the areas you're affecting. So the side on the left, that's this side, the dark side is your shadows. and then the side on the right is your highlight, and the middle is a mid-tone. So sometimes I push colors into each zone, yes, but for now we are focusing on the shadows. If you are wondering at what point it's okay to stop, I'm using the skin tone as a guide. I don't want to push colors into the skin tone, so always you try to preserve the skin tone as much as you can. So that is exactly what I'm looking at in pushing the slider. Okay, so I think somewhere here is fine, but in this current state, if we should make any drastic changes, you're going to see like some hard edges. So we need to feather it a little bit. Yes, so somewhere like this is fine. Let's reduce it a little bit just to clear up the skin tone. And in skin tone, I'm mostly referring to the face. So yes, something like this should be fine. Okay, then we click apply and it's done. When you do that, nothing happens to the image, but the darker shadows have been selected, and any adjustment you make is going to affect just those regions. So if I should push the exposure up, you can see what's happening. If I should reduce, you can see what's happening. Yeah, I mean, that is not the kind of look we are going for this image, but you can have an idea of the area that has been selected. So I think I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit because I still feel like we are crashing the details. If you go all the way, see what happens. It doesn't look good. So if you're going to use this, push the sliders gently. So with our previous video, I told you that I color grade with color balance, which is true. But for this luma technique, I have tried both the color balance and the curves, and I think the curves will kind of work better for this technique. You are, of course, free to experiment to see which one works better for you, but I prefer using the curves for the luma. So straight away, let me lift the blues a little to push some color in the shadow. Then I move to the reds and I will bring it down a bit. Then the greens, I'll push the green up a little bit. Okay, so before and after, you can see it's a drastic change, and we've only used 1, 2. So now let's work on the highlights again with the same luma range 2. This time around we are going to work the opposite way. So display mask and then push the highlights all the way up. So now let's bring up our shadows. Again, I'm using the skin as reference. The moment the skin is clear, I'm good. So something like this, then we'll need to feather it. You can see the selection isn't perfect, but it doesn't have to be, because you don't have to go crazy with the colors. So even if it eats, especially the highlights, I noticed that no matter how I tend to select, it gets a bit more of the skin. Yeah, so as long as you don't go crazy, you can get away with it. So I think something like this should be fine for me. Okay, so this time around, we are going to push the upper side of the curves. So I want to bring down my blues. Bring up my reds, because I notice when I push it down, it kind of affects the skin tone too much. So I want to still maintain the skin color, and the green is always the deciding factor. So I think I'm going to bring up the green. Okay, so before and after, everything we've done today, before and after. So you can see how drastic the change has been. I don't know about you, but this is really beautiful. And we haven't done much, but just by using 1, 2, you've seen what we can do to an image. Okay guys, so this is the end of the first part of our video. In the second part, I'm going to show you how to tweak the colors, how to relight the whole image, and also show you certain tools in Capture One that if you don't want to go through this entire process, there are already inbuilt tools that can help you color grade faster. So see you guys in the next video.